The Rainbow Tower. Written by Alex Tymms. Illustrated by R H Stewart. Episode 2. Violet. Jed looked down as the counterweight fell. Below, he could see the raiders had stopped running and shouting. Instead, they stood looking confused and alarmed as under their feet the rubbish squirmed and writhed. Suddenly, they were in the air, shouting again, only this time in fear. A rag rope net had emerged from beneath the recycling material, lifted by the weight on which Jed was riding, and had caught them all. Jed passed them as they rose, a tangled heap of bodies and rubbish, their faces staring out at him in alarm. Jed should have felt great satisfaction, but he was too worried about what he'd seen back at their home area to feel triumphant. Jed felt his fall slow as the rival team were hoisted high in the air. With typical Trevor precision, the weight landed gently on the recycling floor. Jed jumped off as all his team ran to new stations. Simon looked balefully towards him, clearly expecting Jed to come and join him holding a rag rope as thick as his arm. Jed, however, sped by. "Hey, I'm not doing this on my own," Simon shouted. But Jed ignored him and raced towards Trevor, who was directing the whole operation. "Trevor," Jed panted, "Trevor, listen to me." Trevor was now striding forward, a staff in one hand and his gaze fixed on the net. "Is the chute in place?" he asked, frowning for a second as he tried to guess what part of the plan might have gone wrong. "Yes, but—" "And was it number 13? Trevor asked. "Well, yes, but—" Jed tried again. "Then timing's critical," Trevor said, looking at the battered watch which he'd taken from his waistcoat. "Come on, Jed, to your post, or this'll all be for nothing. But we need to—" Trevor strode away, giving a clear signal that whatever Jed had to say could wait. Jed clenched his teeth and ran towards Simon, cursing inwardly. Why would Trevor never listen when he was in the middle of something? Simon merely added to Jed's annoyance. He flicked his dirty blonde fringe out of his face and sneered. "Won't Daddy listen to his favourite son?" "He's not my dad," Jed muttered back as he heaved on the rope. Simon said something in reply, but it was lost in the squeal of a series of pulleys. These magnified Jed and Simon's efforts on the rope, which was attached to a floor plate directly beneath the net. Very slowly, the plate inched open. A blast of foul air hissed free as a jet-black pit was revealed underneath. The smell was so bad it wiped the smug grin right off Simon's face. Jed recognised it as the same stench from the stuff covering the front of his overalls. Trevor reached the edge of the opening and grimaced at the smell. Above him, many of the rival team in the net were trying not to gag. "This," boomed Trevor, in a voice he seemed to be able to make bigger at will, "is a warning." The people in the net peered down at him through the gaps in the rag ropes. "Look back to your home," he commanded. Everyone obeyed, including Trevor's own team. Jed, however, kept trying to catch Trevor's eye. Trevor pointedly ignored him. He was mid-performance and nothing was going to interrupt his flow. With perfect timing, chute 13 rumbled and shook, then spewed rubbish, not down onto its usual cone, but off to one side. There were shouts of dismay and anger from the net. Jed understood why they were so upset. He knew how much hard work they feared had just been buried. "We have not destroyed your home," Trevor went on. "This time." He gestured to the black opening beneath them. "And we won't drop you in the night soil pit." Trevor paused for effect. "This time. Next time, however—" He left the threat hanging while he stared up at them. "OK, let them down," he commanded as he turned away. The team sprang into action. Eva set the winch grinding, slowly lowering the net while raising the counterweight that old George guided into the air. Mrs. F and the twins stood ready to gather the net once the team were free, and Simon tried to close the floor plate, but once again found himself alone and couldn't make the rope move. Jed was heading for Trevor. "Trevor! Jed, what has got into you?" barked Trevor. "Get that cover back on before we all asphyxiate." Jed was so cross he stormed away, shoved Simon off the rope and hauled the floor plate shut on his own. The plate thumped into place just in time for the captives to land on it, and the rival teams scrambled to be free of the net. They sprinted away, along with any chance of finding out who was really behind their raid. Jed was furious. "Well done, everyone," Trevor called out, "like clockwork." He came over to Jed, who was winding up the rope to put back into store and taking out his frustration by wrenching it into submission. "Now, what was so important you had to interrupt the proceedings?" Jed only just resisted the urge to swear at him and tell him it didn't matter. "We needed to interrogate them," he said sullenly, shoving another piece of rope into part of a coil. "Why, to find out they're as shiftless and stupid as every other new team," Trevor replied, tweaking the noisy pulley near his left foot with his stick. "No," Jed replied, glancing up from his rope winding to find Trevor avoiding his gaze. "To ask them why a manager from HR was alone in their home area." Trevor still didn't look at him. "And why they were raiding our stores when they had more than enough of their own," finished Jed. There, he'd said it. But it didn't make him feel any better, considering it was all too late. Trevor stopped fiddling with the wheel, but didn't look at Jed. When he did eventually raise his head, he was smiling. "I'm sure it was nothing." Mrs. F interrupted before Jed could say he wasn't convinced by either the smile or the reassurance. "Right, everyone," she called out. "You know the drill. Reset everything. Then it's bed for all of us. We have an inspection to be ready for." She turned to Jed, her nose wrinkling. "And you, young man, need to go and wash those overalls." She glanced disapprovingly at his hair once more before moving off to organise the twins, who were fighting over who should hold which bit of net. Once everything was reset and the net buried again, Jed made his way through the purple gloom to the standpipe and wash area. Everyone else made ready for bed. Simon lay staring up at the repeat of Indigo Life playing on the company screen way above. Jed never bothered to watch it much. He'd no intention of trying for promotion to Indigo, so didn't need to be told how much better it was than Violet. As far as Jed was concerned, this was where he belonged. Mrs. F at last settled down the twins. As 8-year-olds, they'd only recently been separated from their parents, and going to bed was when they missed them most. Jed noticed one of them had been crying, for her cheeks were still bright red as she dozed off, and he wondered what it must be like to feel that separation. He'd no idea who his real parents were, or even what they looked like. They would be somewhere in the tower, but as they'd clearly abandoned him, he wasn't going to bother looking for them. Jed saw Mrs. F going through her nightly routine of arranging the photographs of her 7 sons around the head of her bedroll. He bet his parents didn't do that. He tried not to care, but deep down he wished that somewhere they did. His thoughts were interrupted by Simon. "Ah, not the thing with the photographs again," Simon sneered. "Every time we go to bed, all we need now is for him," he cocked his head towards Trevor, "to start moaning about how he'd like to put his feet in the sea, whatever in tower that might be." Trevor, however, didn't rise to the jibe and appeared lost in thoughts of his own. "I can't wait until they find their mistake and promote me back up to Indigo again," Simon grumbled as he turned his back on everyone. Jed walked on. Unlike Simon, he liked the routine. It made him feel safe. Old George was snoring for real this time, and as he passed Eva's bed, Jed straight in front of him. He was not going to be made to feel like a kid again. However, as he walked beyond her bedroll, he couldn't resist a quick glance back, and much to his astonishment, he found Eva staring at him. She looked away quickly, and suddenly Jed felt much older than his 15 years. He began filling the battered tin sink, grinning from ear to ear. Jed was standing in his shorts, midway through wringing out his overalls in the jerry-rigged rollers of the mangle, when Trevor came up to him. The big man looked awkward as he reached for one of the pockets of his waistcoat. Here, he held out something shaped like a flat rectangle in a yellowing plastic case. This is yours. One side was black, the other silver, and covered in tiny scratches. I've been looking after it for you until, well, you know. Jed didn't know. It doesn't work, Trevor went on. But it's still a banned device, so don't get caught with it. With that, he turned and limped off, the day's exertions telling on him. Oh, well done today, he called back. Spot on. Jed stared at Trevor's receding back, then down at the device in his hands. What was all that about? And why now? He turned it over, wondering what it could be, pulling it out of its case for a better look. On the silver back, the scratches became clear. It was a list of names, none of which he recognised. Jed flipped it over and to his astonishment found himself staring at a brightly lit screen with tiny lines all over it. Jed traced his finger over the lines, finding they moved as he did so. He frowned. Trevor had said this thing, whatever it was, didn't work. He glanced up, suddenly aware of a movement across the other side of the home area, and was horrified to see a whole team of HR suits. He hid the device hastily behind his back, but none of them were looking his way. Instead, all their attention was on Trevor. Thank you very much for listening to The Rainbow Tower. To see more of R H Stewart's excellent artwork, you'll find him on Instagram at roy.hootson.stewart. For Alex Tymms, why not try the novel OutCaste at ao3.com? Or, for something completely different, check out the Amier series on YouTube or at amier.com, also by Alex Tymms. The Rainbow Tower. Text copyright Alex Tymms. Illustrations copyright R H Stewart. The right of Alex Tymms and R H Stewart to be identified as the author and illustrator of this work has been asserted in accordance with the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988.